Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
Hello, thanks for being here this Monday, December 16th. You know, silly me, I kind of thought we were close enough to the holiday season that we would get through without another horrible shooting. Well, I'm sure you've heard there was a shooting. Apparently a current or former student attacked some other students at a private Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin. The top of the hour, Associated Press News said 3 were dead. The police are going to be making a statement on this in about 30 minutes. But CNN is still reporting that there are 2 dead, a teacher and a student. We will get the latest information when the police decide to have their press conference, like I said, sometime roughly in the next half hour. It just breaks your heart. Anytime there's a shooting, it breaks your heart. But when it's kids killing kids, it's just almost unfathomable. We will bring you more information as it becomes available. And until then, let's talk some politics. You know, one of the things that I was saying last week, and I know a few of you were kind of echoing that, was where did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get to? They have made very few public speeches, public appearances even, in the days since Kamala lost. And there have been articles written recently about, you know, what is Joe Biden doing? Is he basically ceding the presidency to Donald Trump early? It kind of feels like that. You know, Donald Trump's talking to world leaders. Donald Trump's traveling here. Donald Trump's giving a speech. And we haven't gotten much of that from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Even last weekend, when Assad's regime in Syria fell over the weekend, Joe Biden really didn't make a public statement about it till Monday. I don't know what's going on there, but when there was a holiday party they were both at, and that we did get, you know, statements from them then, this holiday party last week. And, you know, they're saying the sort of things that we would expect them to say. But there's not really that much of it. You know, we all were taken aback by Donald Trump getting reelected the way that he did. Even though it was a slim margin, it was a big surprise to some of us, an unpleasant surprise. But it happened, and we deal with that reality, and we move forward. But maybe we take a little time to, you know, just turn off the television and concentrate on the family for the holidays. But that's us. You know, we're not figureheads of the Democratic Party. We're not the people that the country is looking to for inspiration and leadership. That would be Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Well, Kamala did make a kind of an uplifting kind of a speech when she was at the Democratic holiday party. But you can tell, even though what she said was very positive, and it's kind of getting us together so that we move forward together, it feels to me that their shock, like our shock, is something that they are still dealing with. We are going to do this week what we have been doing for a while. The first hour, we are opening up the phone lines, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Paul Shavari is back in the studio waiting to get your call. You can also text me on that line. We're going to spend the first hour talking about the news of the day. And then we're going to spend an hour with our good friend Chris Bury, DePaul journalist in residence. And then we're going to spend an hour with former newsman and news manager and political observer, Dave Layman. So, keep your dialing finger ready. We are going to be keeping those phone lines open pretty much, not just this first hour, but pretty much the entire day. So back to Kamala Harris. They had a holiday party, and she said that we need to keep moving forward. We need to remind ourselves about what we believe in, and we need to know that the fight is not over. Frankly, it's a message I'd like to hear from her and Joe Biden pretty much every day. But I'll take what I can get, and I'm going to share this with you now. Again, this is from a holiday party, a Democratic holiday party last week. This is Vice President Kamala Harris addressing the crowd. Listen to this.
Hear me when I say this. That spirit that fuels the countless hours and days and months of work that you have put into this, that spirit can never be defeated. Our spirit is not defeated. We are not defeated. Let's be clear about that. We are strong. We are clear about why we are in this. And because you're here right now, I say, again, thank you, because not only are you clear about all of that, you're willing to put in the hard work. And that work must continue. We cannot let any circumstance or situation or individual ever take away our power to know why we do what we do and our ability to then get that work done. And especially because we know what we stand for, and that's why we know what to fight for. We here believe in the promise of America. We believe in the promise of freedom, of justice, of opportunity and dignity, not just for some, but for all. We know that fighting for the promise of America takes hard work. Now, y'all can help me finish this. Many of you have heard me say it. But we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And in the new year, we will continue our work with hope, with determination, and with joy.
Not a bad message. I think it's a message we could use to hear every day, though I do understand the feeling behind our texter who wrote in, the electorate proved they don't listen. What is there to say? Yeah. We have to figure out the people who voted Donald Trump yes, Kamala Harris no. We have to figure out what was that motivation. Sometimes people just feel like they want to change and they don't really care who's at the top of the ticket, which I know is hard for you to believe and me to believe, since these are not normal candidates in normal times. Donald Trump is anything but. So we'll see as things go forward. I will get to the phone lines, but first we're going to take a real quick break. Remember, the number is 773-763-9278. 9278. We'll be right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
773-763-9278. Taking your calls, reading your texts, talking about the news of the day. Let's go to the phone lines. Jim is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Jim.
Hi, Joan. I made the tragic error of turning my television on Saturday looking for a football. Yeah, for a football game, and I come across Channel 7, and they have Trump's image on Truth Social with the red, white, and blue over his face, saying, "I will stop those flying projectiles. I will look at." Apparently, there was flying projectiles at some silly story they had. And anyway, Trump jumped on it right away and said that he would.
The drones over New Jersey. Yeah.
No, he'd get to the bottom of it immediately, because we all know that he's supernatural and that he has powers above those of mortal men. He proved it in many dressing rooms and many molestations he's done. But what about Cinnamon Manchin deserting Biden on that appointment, that 9-year appointment that would have been significant? I don't know, with something with the Justice Department or something like, and they wouldn't back him up on those. It just shows you that they have no loyalty to their Democratic Party.
Well, Joe Manchin was with Trump at the Army-Navy game. I know. It was a mad celebrity.
I watched a little bit of it. It was just like a mad celebrity. They showed more of Trump than they did the game.
Yeah.
But that's so much in the tank. The tank they are for this creature. It's 4 years, Joe. Think of it. For 4 years, we're going to have to put up with this. Truth Social. What is with Truth Social? Does he? I know that he tries to sell it eventually for a fortune. His family sold for a fortune.
Yeah, well, it was doing the stock price for Truth Social was at a high right before the election, and there were suspicions. I certainly had suspicions that Donald Trump's billionaire friends and billionaire supporters were propping it up, because as soon as the election was over, Truth Social stock dropped again. So I don't know what's going to happen. You know, maybe one of his billionaire buddies will buy it.
Oh. But in his first term, all of his announcements on the tweet that was out of the White House, right? So he must have a couple of accounts like that. So in other words, we'll be told by the king of the United States, as the Supreme Court's made him a king. You know, King Trump. He'll give us his decrees from wherever he's at, and on whatever subjects he deems goes through that brilliant mind of his.
I was just listening to. Remember Miles Taylor? He was with was it Homeland Security? He was high up with one of the security, Homeland Security, National Intelligence, something. During the Trump administration. And I was just this morning re-listening to the interview he gave talking about the crazy things that Donald Trump, when he called them up, I think it must have been Homeland Security, because Donald Trump called them up and said, you know, why don't you build a 2,000-mile moat at the border and put snakes and alligators into it? And that would really keep people from crossing the border. And somebody said, well, you know, what did you, overall, you know, you were there for quite a while. What did you think of Donald Trump? And Miles Taylor looked at the interview and said, the man's an idiot. The man's an idiot. He said, first of all, I'm conservative. I'm a Republican, more so than Donald Trump has ever been. But I'm telling you, the man is an idiot. There you go. But we elected him again.
But, Joan, they had a program on Saturday also. I noticed that Maria Ressa was on, the head of the BBC, and a reporter that was let out of that prisoner swap from Russia. And they said, don't you realize that the Internet has caused 71% of the world now to become authoritarian? 71% of the world. Your rage is completely authoritarian, from China to Russia, and we're authoritarian now. So So 71% of the planet's under this insanity because of the fact that people can't discern the facts from reality. They just can't do it.
Maria Ressa wrote a book, and I'm trying to remember the exact title. I think it's How to Stand Up to a Dictator. And she said, she's from the Philippines, and the Facebook is like anybody in the Philippines who has a computer is on Facebook. And she was somewhere where Mark Zuckerberg was, and she tried to tell Zuckerberg like how important it was not to have misinformation or lies, because, that was where the people of the Philippines went for all of their information. And she said she could tell Zuckerberg it didn't compute. It didn't make an impression.
They're worth $300 billion, Joan, these czars of the Internet.
Yep. And they all act like they're Trump toadies, and God forbid he's mean to me.
Because their real is money. That's the only thing they're interested in is money. That's their whole scheme. But anyway, we got 4 years of this torture, and you've got a couple of great guests on, Joe. At least we made it through the weekend. Anyway, we just got to keep at it. We got to keep at it, Joe. Thank you much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. That press conference, Donald Trump gave a news conference. I don't know if we can call it news since we know he doesn't tell the truth. But he did do like an hour or more. And Jim was talking about the drones over New Jersey. Here's the Wall Street Journal kind of did point by point the things that Trump covered in the news conference. And he talked about the drones. Trump asserted, without citing evidence, no evidence, but he asserted that the government knows what's happening with the mysterious drones that have appeared in the skies over New Jersey. Now, state and federal officials have said, we don't know what they're about. We don't think they're from a foreign government, but we don't know who's putting them up. We don't know anything about it. So state and federal officials say they don't know what's going on, but Trump says he knows. Without evidence. Trump said our military knows where they took off from, and for some reason, they don't want to comment. And then he was asked, was this, did this come out of a security briefing? And he said, no, I'm not going to tell you where I learned what I learned. And I'm not going to give you any evidence, but I'm going to tell you the government knows about the drones. Okay, well. Is he telling the truth? Is this another one of his made-up stories so that he can sound like he knows what he's talking about and has inside information? God only knows. God only knows. By the way, in that same press conference, he was asked about tariffs because, a lot of CEOs are letting it be known, particular to the Wall Street Journal, that they don't want tariffs. They think tariffs are a terrible idea, and they want tariffs to go away. But Donald Trump was asked about that, and he said, nope, tariffs are coming. They tax us, we tax them, which is not how tariffs work. Oh, my God. A tariff is a tax on us. A tariff makes, if your company imports widgets from China and there's a tariff, instead of paying $5 for a widget, maybe you're going to pay $7 for a widget. And when you turn around to sell those widgets in the United States, do you think that you're just going to eat that $2 increase? Or do you think that maybe you're going to raise the price to consumers of your widgets to cover that? It's, I'm not an economist, and I don't play one on TV, and even I understand that tariffs are taxes on us. But Donald Trump is insisting. This is just like the, rural areas went very heavily for Trump. A lot of those rural areas are farming areas. And reporters have been doing interviews with farmers. The reporter interviewed a guy who owned a big dairy farm next to Kristi Noem's dairy, or her, I don't know if hers is dairy, but his farm is next to hers. And he told the reporter, he said, my farm operates 24/7. Without undocumented workers, this farm will come to a screeching halt. He said, if we do mass deportations, food production in this country is going to come to a halt. So he was like, nah, yeah, I voted for Trump. Nah, he's not going to do that. He understands how it would hurt us. Yeah, you think he does? Oh, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Let's go back to the phone lines. Our good friend Bobby's on the line from Indiana. Hello, Bobby. How are things in Indiana today?
I don't know. No, it's sunny. I guess that's something.
Well, there you go. There's something.
Yeah. I wonder if our good Democratic friends are going to try to pull the wool out from under us from what I heard earlier this morning. I think it was that, I think he's from California, that, what is his name, Rocana, whatever, made the comment that somehow that, well, I think we'll be able to work with that douche or doge or whatever the hell it is.
Doge.
And I'm thinking, boy, you stupid SOB. Is that going to be the Democrats' plan now? That will say, look, we only got them to cut out just this little bit from your Social Security and Medicare. And then look how good we are. Yeah, what they should be saying, you're going to be doing all these other cuts. You need to boost those programs.
Yes, exactly.
So
the thing that we've got in our corner, Bobby, is from what I've been reading, I'm not saying they won't get around to our Social Security, but right now the first people they're going to go after are the poor people. They're going to go after Medicaid. The things that I've been reading are just awful.
Yeah, well, I'm already hit with the Indiana. But you blindsided me last Friday, and I'm still not sure how to handle it. When you said you're getting all these messages, everybody wants to help me, and all of this stuff, and
yeah,
I'm really kind of beyond help. And boy, you humbled me, and believe me, I've never been I'm the only one that can do it type. So I don't know. But there is something, though, that people can do for me, that this is a year where I really can't do it. And, in fact, they could do it this very minute if they're computer savvy. I'm sure it's on computers. But during this next week or however long it's going on, give what you can to the Salvation Army, because I can't do what I always like to do.
That's a great idea, Bobby. We will do that in your name, and we will do that.
Well, you don't do it in my name. Just do it. That's all I'm asking.
Absolutely.
Get my name. Just get it in there, because obviously, you know, as well as I do, a lot of people hurting, and they're going to be hurting all the more.
Yep. That's really good advice. Bobby, I've got to take a break, but thank you for the call, and thank you for that suggestion.
Okay. You have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
You take care. All righty. We are going to take a break. We're going to be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
We are talking about the news of the day. We are taking your calls. By the way, if you were listening to the break there, and actually, I'm not sure if you're listening on your phone, if you got the same commercials, but you just heard that for the next week, Richard and Patty and I are going to be giving away gift cards for Fry the Coop. I want you to know that I will be giving away my gift card in the 3 o'clock hour when DePaul journalist in residence Chris Bury joins me. That is when we will be giving away our Fry the Coop gift card. And on each of our shows, we are going to be giving away one every day. So, little holiday thank you from WCPT and Fry the Coop. Want to get back to the news of the day. Like I said, the shooting in Madison. CNN is still saying 2 dead. Associated Press is saying 3. We are waiting for a police update on that shooting. Apparently, a student or former student at a Christian school showed up and started shooting. At least one teacher and one student are dead, but there are at least 6 injuries. Keeping an eye on that and sending really positive thoughts to our neighbors to the north. It would be nice not to have one of these for a while, wouldn't it? So back to politics. I was telling you about how the Wall Street Journal reported on the news conference Donald Trump had over the weekend, and how he said that everybody knows, the government knows where the drones over New Jersey are coming from. But for some reason, nobody wants to talk about it. And I won't say what my proof is, and I won't say where I got my information, but I'm just telling you it's okay. All righty. Still not backing off the tariffs. And they also, in the news conference, he also talked about pardons. That's been one of the big things. Who is he going to pardon? Well, we haven't been talking a lot about this, mostly because it's New York and mostly because it's crime. But New York City Mayor Eric Adams, you may be aware, he's been charged with bribery, fraud, campaign finance issues. And he has not gone to trial. But apparently Donald Trump is already considering a pardon for him. New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Now, generally, as you know, Donald Trump hates the blue states and the blue cities. But Eric Adams, even though he still calls himself a Democrat, and he ran for mayor of New York City as a Democrat, is widely believed in New York to be much more of a Republican than a Democrat. So maybe that, or maybe Donald Trump just doesn't like the idea of anybody being charged with bribery and fraud. That hit a little too close to home, Donald. Maybe it does. So Donald Trump said, and I quote, referring to Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, "I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of it all, but it seems, like being upgraded in an airplane many years ago. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded." What in God's name does that mean? What does that mean? It's just breathtaking, isn't it? He's talking about New York City Mayor Eric Adams. He said that he would consider a pardon for Eric Adams because, it's like being upgraded in an airplane. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded. Sometimes if you think really hard, you can maybe connect the dots with what he's saying. But this one, I got to tell you, I'm pretty stumped. I don't know how being mayor of New York and facing federal charges of bribery, fraud, and campaign finance offenses, how is that like being upgraded on an airliner? It's a puzzlement. It is a puzzlement, isn't it? Somebody is commenting on the fact that I still sound a little stuffy. I noticed at the, when you take Paxlovid, it says on the box that after you finish the Paxlovid, anywhere from 2 days to 8 days after that, you could have rebound symptoms. 8 days, exactly. stuffy nose, sore throat, all of it came back. So I actually thought I was doing pretty well today, but apparently those of you who are listening have decided that I still sound a little under the weather, and I thank you for the remedies that you are offering. I will do my darndest to get my immune system in really good shape, okay? I promise. Let's go back to the phone lines. Earl is on the line from Hyde Park. Hey, Earl, how are you today?
Oh, happy holidays to you and your family, Joe.
To you, too.
And I want you and the rest of the audience to try to stay as optimistic as we possibly can for the next 2 years, hopefully. And maybe we can get some changes in the House next coming 2-year cycle, where it might not be as disastrous as it could be if he has a 4-year control of all 3 branches of government. But the reason why I called in today was to suggest that Democrats are going to always be behind the 8 ball. If you're a liberal like I am, we just don't have the bench that the Republican Party has.
How do you mean that, Earl?
Well, we don't have a Murdoch who's willing to spend billions of dollars to saturate the country with lies and disinformation to promote an ideology.
Yeah, it does seem that they have more big, deep-pocketed folks behind them than Democrats do.
Right, and they use their deep pockets to broadcast a program out across these satellite stations that distort and benefit the rich and powerful. And it's a sad thing. They just don't, the people that vote for them are hoping for a better lifestyle, and the people that are going to benefit from this lifestyle are not necessarily going to be the ones that vote for him on the bottom of the, political geographical spectrum, but the middle guys like Bezos and stuff like that. I just can't believe how I'm hearing how they all are going to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring because they don't want to lose their government contracts.
Yep.
Or they don't want to get off with tariffs.
Yep. You'd think the people who have enough wealth to insulate themselves from anything, those are the ones who seem most nervous and most interested in ingratiating themselves. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, how much is enough money?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, to some people, there's no such thing as enough money. I mean, they have, like Jeff Bezos has enough money, and Elon Musk have enough money to fund a lot of our programs for education and health care out of their pockets, and wouldn't hurt their lifestyle one bit.
No, Jeff Bezos could get on his mega yacht and spend the rest of his life sailing around the world. I mean, it's just amazing. It's people like you and me who are ready to stand up and fight. But, the people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and even that Patrick Sunyingu, who's head of the LA Times, it's like they can't move fast enough to get on Trump's good side. They really can't. The people who are the most insulated from what he's going to do seem to be the ones most terrified of him.
And the sad thing about it, I think, also besides what we discussed, is they want the blessing of the king, even though the king is an idiot. And the little king is an idiot.
Exactly.
They think that they can control the king, but if they can't control the king can still turn around and bite them. And, they're playing with fire. They do not know whether they are creating another Putin, Xi.
Yep.
You know, they don't know how far with the Supreme Court and the tie-back Republican Party will allow Trump to go. And if they allow him to tear our institutions apart, it may take generations for us to rebuild them.
Yep.
So I don't want to
know. That's my fear, Earl.
Happy note.
My fear is Donald Trump will do so much damage that it will take us a long time to right the ship. But you know what? If he gets out there fast and starts doing damage fast, you know, maybe we can pull this back in the midterm elections and limit him that way, limit the damage that way.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the 2-year maybe cycle, that we may be able to turn the House back in 2 years if it does enough damage now. Because, like, if he starts attacking Medicare and Social Security, I can't believe all those folks in Florida voted for Donald Trump and all those folks on Social Security.
I know. I don't get it.
They're voting against their own interests.
They are, Earl.
For any number of reasons.
And I'm so tired of hearing he doesn't mean it, he won't do it, he won't come after me and mine. Okay, all right, good luck with that. I guess what you're saying is that all the things he claimed and said straight off that he wasn't going to do or was going to do, you think that was all just PR? I don't know. I don't know. I think there are going to be a lot of people who are very badly surprised by Donald Trump. Well, I didn't think he would do that.
Unfortunately, though, unfortunately, we're all going to have to suffer with if he has an opportunity to start tearing our institutions apart, because I don't know the hang up after this, but look how many people they allowed to die from COVID that didn't have to die.
I know.
Because of misinformation.
Yep.
Now he's talking about polio vaccinations. And we haven't had polio.
And the Wall Street Journal the news conference that Wall Street Journal reported on. Donald Trump said during the news conference that he's not sure that vaccines for kids should be mandatory. He said, "I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person." So when kids start getting sick and kids start dying, who do you think he's going to blame it on? He's going to blame it on somebody. Maybe he's going to blame it on RFK Jr. I don't know. But particularly polio. I mean, these diseases, we're not used to living with them because we've had such a great vaccination program in this country. You don't think measles will come back? You don't think polio will come back? It's going to be awful. Earl, I got to get to a break. Thank you so much for the call. And real quick, before we go to break, Sean Barnes, the police chief in Madison, Wisconsin, did just come out and address the media. He said it was 10:57 this morning when they got the call of an active shooter at this private Christian school in Madison. There are now 3 people for sure dead, a student, a teenager, a teacher, and the shooter themselves. 2 students have critical injuries, and 4 students have lesser injuries. They don't have any idea right now what the motive for the shooting was, nor are they releasing any information about names. We are going to take a break. We're going to get back to politics right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
We spend our first hour talking about the news of the day and taking your calls. We are keeping an eye on that mass shooting in Madison, Wisconsin that took place this morning at a private Christian school. Apparently a student or former student was the shooter. They are now deceased, as is another student and a teacher. And a couple more students are in critical condition, and 4 students are hospitalized with what are described as lesser or non-life-threatening injuries. Let's go back to the phone lines. We are also talking about the politics of the world we are living in right now. Ron is on the line from Chicago. Hello, Ron. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Yes. At his press conference this morning, Trump said that he would not suspend or terminate the polio vaccine, and he did this to appease Senator
Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, because he had polio as a child, and Mitch McConnell was very upset when it was reported that RFK Jr.'s attorney sent a petition to the FDA to stop the polio vaccine from being given.
Yeah. Well, I hope he sticks by that, and I hope that other vaccines, kids die from measles as well, and sometimes kids who survive measles have damaged bodies that they have to live with for the rest of their lives. I hope someone is able to convince him that getting rid of vaccine mandates is a very, very, very bad idea. And it drives me crazy, Ron. Obviously, Mitch McConnell, he's still to this day, he's debilitated from having polio as a child, and he feels very strongly about that. And then I'm sure you heard that his comment that he made last week about this incoming Trump administration, that we are in very, very dangerous times. And I thought to myself, that would mean so much more to me. I would take that comment from Mitch McConnell so much more seriously if he wasn't a big part of the reason why we have these very, very dangerous times. He's a big part of the reason why Donald Trump was not excised from our political life like a cancer. They were all so afraid. Nobody wanted to stand up to Trump. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. And now we're in very, very dangerous times. Well, no kidding, Mitch. No kidding. Thanks for that, by the way, Mitch.
Thanks for putting us in the corner.
Yeah. Well, I hope he holds to that. Like I said, the Wall Street Journal was reporting on the news conference he gave over the weekend, where he just said, well, he doesn't believe in mandates, so he doesn't want the government to require things, except when it comes to the government requiring what women do or do not do with their bodies. That's apparently a different category. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I listened to part of Trump's press conference, and he's just he says things like, "I didn't know there were so many countries." He just.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
I know. All right, thank you. All right.
He isn't just ignorant. He wears his ignorance like some sort of badge of honor. It's just really breathtaking. Thank you so much, Ron, for the call.
All right.
Before we wrap up for news and move on to our conversation with DePaul journalist in residence Chris Bury, I want to share with you something that Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of Democrats in the House, said at a recent press conference. And I saw this last week. And, Democrats were stunned by the election results. And it seemed at first like there were so many states that went for Donald Trump. It seemed like it was some kind of landslide until we actually got the numbers. And Trump eked out a victory, something like it ended up he had 1.4%. 1.4% more votes than Kamala Harris. Not a landslide. Not a mandate. And what Hakeem Jeffries wanted to point out when he was speaking to the news media, and we've talked about this on this show, a lot of the states that voted for Trump at the top of the ticket voted Democratic for down ballot races, governors, attorneys general, state reps, state senators. More so than we've seen in a long time, people split their ballot. So to say that this was some sort of crushing defeat, that Democrats have to rethink everything because we're just so lost is not really the most accurate picture. Hakeem Jeffries pointed out to the news media to whom he was speaking that really when you stand back and look at the big picture, Democrats did pretty well in this last election. Not at the top of the ticket, but in a lot of other races, even in swing states. Listen to what Hakeem Jeffries had to say about this.
In North Carolina, notwithstanding the fact that Donald Trump won at the presidential level, Democrats won the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, the attorney general race, the secretary of state race, and the state Supreme Court in North Carolina on that very same day that Donald Trump won the presidential election. Are we on the run in the state of North Carolina? What happened in Wisconsin? On the same day that Donald Trump won at the presidential level, Tammy Baldwin was reelected. Are we on the run in Wisconsin, in the heartland of the United States of America, when Tammy Baldwin won with a Republican president winning at the top of the ticket? What happened in Michigan? Another heartland state. Alyssa Slotkin won the Senate seat and is on her way to the United States Senate. Are we on the run in the heartland state of Michigan? What happened in Nevada? Donald Trump wins the presidential election, but on the same day, same set of voters, Jackie Rosen is reelected to the United States Senate. Are we on the run in Nevada and in Arizona? And by the way, in Nevada, all three House Democratic incumbents reelected. And in Arizona, Donald Trump wins somewhat convincingly at the presidential level. But Ruben Gallego is on his way to the United States Senate. Same day, same set of voters, same election.
Yeah. So overall, maybe not as beaten down as it initially feels because we didn't win the top spot. Let's go back to the phone lines. Dave from Hoffman Estates is on the line. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Hey, Joan. I was just thinking real quick, talking about with that anti-vaccines and stuff they don't like. Aren't the Jehovah's Witness, aren't they also anti-vax people? Where they don't believe in modern medicine and stuff? I'm not quite sure, but I know that they're the ones that won't accept blood transfusions. I don't know how their stance is on vaccines. Okay, no, because I remember there was a lady, that sister, and they knew, and they were that, and they had a child died because they didn't believe in the modern medicine and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that they didn't go for the modern stuff like vaccine, like here and there, but you mentioned like with the measles too. What about another one you have to be on the lookout for would be German measles. Remember, like with the women that are pregnant or something? I don't know how far in, but you get, kids could be blind or who knows. It affects, that virus affects, fetuses and stuff.
And if Bobby Kennedy Jr. gets his way and vaccine mandates are made optional up to the parents, there's going to be a lot of people who decide not to vaccinate, and there's going to be a lot of kids who get sick and who are impaired, and some of them are going to die. And you know what's going to happen then? Just as when he went to Samoa, and then because of statements he made, kids died because of public health measures that weren't enacted, he's going to wash his hands. He's going to say, well, it wasn't me. That wasn't my fault that your kid died. That wasn't my fault. I didn't tell you not to vaccinate your kid. I just told you it wasn't going to be required by law. You could have still vaccinated your kid. Don't come after me. He's not a kind of guy who seems to actually take responsibility for what he says and believes. Like, he knew that saying that he hated vaccines wasn't a popular political position, so he claimed he'd never been that. He'd never said that, even though news outlet after news outlet had, videotape of him saying exactly that. No, I didn't say that. Nope, that wasn't me.
Yeah. And on that lines with the German measles again, and I got to thinking, and then with their stance about anti-abortion and stuff like that, because that possibly the parent, if they knew, would want it aborted, that the kid, could be, like you say, blind, or I guess it really messes them up,
It's Yeah, there's a reason why these vaccines are required, and let's hope that they don't get around to it, or that cooler heads prevail, and that doctors fight harder against this. But people are we have a lot of people who don't believe in science, and it really breaks my heart. Dave, I got to go. We got to get to the news,
thanks,
but
Joe.
thank you for the call.
Well. Mm-hmm.
We are going to do the news, and we're going to be back with Chris Bury, DePaul journalist in residence, right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
I am very pleased to welcome our good friend Chris Bury, a DePaul University journalist in residence, former longtime network news guy, here to talk about, well, pretty much everything. You ready for that, Chris? We're going to talk about everything.
Everything. That sounds good. Like one of those everything bagels. I like that idea.
Yeah, you're going to be our everything bagel today, Chris. I hope you're up to the task. One thing that I wanted to start with, and I didn't talk about this at the beginning of the show, so we may have to explain to people what's going on. Over the weekend, at least in the journalistic community, shockwaves were felt when ABC News decided to settle a defamation suit brought by Donald Trump, because when George Stephanopoulos was talking to Nancy Mace, who is herself a survivor of sexual assault, he kept asking her how she could support a man who was a rapist. And Donald Trump immediately had his lawyers file a defamation suit because, technically he was convicted of sexual assault, not rape. I mean, even though there have been other judges who've clarified since then that basically, legally, it's the same thing. And if you want to call it rape, you can call it rape. But instead of fighting it, ABC News has capitulated. They've settled it. They're going to contribute $15 million to the Donald Trump Presidential Library, and they have issued an apology. I don't know if Stephanopoulos had to read it on the air, but they have issued an apology in which he says he is sorry for what he said. And at least in journalism circles, this has been met with, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're not going to fight this? Are you kidding me? You're going to roll over? Having been sued for work that I did on air, I remember once we did an investigation about a doctor, and the results of our investigation pretty much put the doctor out of business because there were some pretty horrible allegations. And the doctor sued us. And we were, this was the I team, and we were, fighting it. And we got a new general manager. And instead of looking at it as this is our credibility on the line, he was like, well, but it's probably going to cost like at least $50,000 in lawyers' fees to fight this. The guy only wants $25,000. We could make it go away for $25,000. Maybe we'll just, settle. And everybody in the newsroom was like, you can't do that. Sure, you might be saving a few $1,000s in the short term, but in the long term, your credibility, your investigative team's credibility has just been shot, has just been destroyed. What do you think about what you saw and heard about what ABC is doing?
I agree. It was a capitulation. It was a surrender. It was ridiculous on any legal merit. And I'm not saying this just because I spent 30 years as an ABC News correspondent. I think it was the wrong decision and a wrong-headed decision. And I don't think it's based in any way on the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I do teach defamation law at DePaul University in our journalism program. And basically, there is almost no way that ABC News and the parent company Disney could have lost this suit for a couple of reasons. One is the famous libel standard or defamation standard known as New York Times versus Sullivan, which says that in order to successfully win a libel suit, the plaintiff, that is, in this case, Trump, would have to prove not only that the material is false, but that it was also broadcast or published with actual malice, which means a reckless disregard for the truth. That's number one. But number two, there is another privilege that journalists have, and that is when they are citing court documents or they're citing a judge's opinion, that's considered a privilege, and they are pretty much bulletproof from defamation lawsuits as long as they're citing court documents or court rulings or judges' words in a legal transcript. So I teach that to my students, that, okay, if you're going to report a critical story, you are on solid ground if you carefully attribute it to a legal document, be it a police report, a court decision. So, yeah, legally, there's absolutely no reason for ABC to settle, but that's not why they did it. They did it for two other reasons. One is political, and the other is money, business. Political, Disney did not want a protracted legal dispute with the incoming president whose, choice for an FCC commissioner has threatened to pull licenses of broadcast stations. And we know that Disney owns ABC and ABC owns television stations. So Disney, having gone through a 2-year protracted battle with Ron DeSantis in Florida, did not want that. And the third thing is the brand. Just the way the Trumpers torpedoed Bud Light for a couple of years and really put a dent in their sales. I'm sure the Disney executives were thinking, we don't want our brand, our theme parks, our movies affected by a lengthy battle. Now, I think those are cowardly reasons myself, but this has nothing to do with the law. This has everything to do with politics and business.
And here's the downside. While we were just talking, I got a text from a listener, and this is what the text says. ABC settled for a reason. What are they hiding that they don't want released to the public? Right there, credibility 101. If they settled, they must have had a good reason. They must have done other bad things. Unbelievable.
Well, we'll never know. The only quote bad thing that I can think of, and this is pure guesswork or speculation, is that there is a possibility that there were texts or emails that, for whatever reason, ABC News does not want to divulge. But I seriously doubt that, because their lawyers would have been able to have discovery against Trump, and that could have been devastating to him.
Yes, it is. Now, Chris, who do you think made that decision? Because clearly I can't see Stephanopoulos, maybe it was like, hey, this is the decision we've made. You go along with it or you can quit. I can't. I'm stunned by his capitulation here. But, in the case of what happened when I was at NBC, like I said, we got a new general manager who didn't look at it in terms of credibility. They just looked at it in terms of what's it going to cost to settle versus what's it going to cost to go to court. And Would that be the ABC lawyers? Would that be the head of the news division? Would that be all of the above?
No, I think this goes right to Walt Disney Company and CEO Bob Iger. This is a decision. That's my guess. I don't think there's any way that this wasn't brought to Disney corporate. It's too big, too high profile anchor in Stephanopoulos with the incoming president of the United States. This, to me, is a Disney decision. And, as I mentioned, Disney was in a bruising battle with DeSantis. In the end, DeSantis didn't really win anything.
No.
Because, they both agreed to end this dispute over the management of the property around Disney World near Orlando. So, it really came away as a stalemate. But, for 2 years, Disney had to put up with these attacks from DeSantis and his followers. And I'm sure that was in the minds of Bob Iger, who actually came back as CEO during the middle of that, and it's the reason the previous CEO was forced out, or one of them. So I think this is corporate. I think Disney didn't want the battle with the Trumpers, and it worried about its brand in the way that other companies have had their brands suffered under Trump attack, but. No, I think in legal terms, this. First of all, I can't believe a judge even let this go this far. But secondly, discovery, I think, would have been far more damaging for Trump. And remember, Trump
that's what I you know that, and I know that, and I don't see how Bob Iger, maybe you're right. It's all short term. It's all share prices. It's my board will be really happy if I just get rid of this. But long term, they have done damage to the brand.
Not only to the brand, but to journalists everywhere, because I think that we've already seen, new threats come up. Just today, there was a report that Trump was going to possibly sue the Des Moines Register over its poll on the eve of the election, which showed that Kamala Harris was pulling ahead in Iowa, that he was going to sue the pollster and the Des Moines Register for publishing the legitimate survey. So this is only going to add fuel to the Trump campaign of intimidation. We have already heard from, the FCC nominee that he is going to look at licenses of stations critical of Trump. And we've already heard from Kash Patel, the intelligence director nominee or appointee, that, they're going to go after the media. So this is a way to do it. But my concern is that by capitulating and waving the white flag, Disney has paved the way for Trump and his associates to threaten other news organizations and much less wealthy news organizations with lawsuits that will have a chilling effect.
Yeah, I agree. I'm talking to DePaul University journalist in residence Chris Bury. We are going to take a break. We're going to be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I am joined by Chris Bury, DePaul journalist in residence and former longtime network newsman. Chris, this will probably be our last conversation of 2024. So let me take this opportunity to say I wish you the happiest of holidays going forward.
And same to you, Joan. Happy holidays.
Lots of fun, lots of good family, lots of good health. But let's take a look back at this year that was 2024. What if I were to ask you right now, what three things were you either surprised by, pleased by, stunned by in 2024? What would you tell us?
Well, I was thinking about this in terms of the most significant three things. And to keep it nice and easy, I just thought, well, let me think of three things that start with the same letter. So I came up with the election, the economy, and Europe. And, of course, there are many other things with, which to choose. But obviously the most significant thing and the most surprising thing to me was Trump's election over Kamala Harris. Narrow popular vote, as you mentioned in the last hour, 1.5%, but decisive in the Electoral College, and Trump won all 7 battleground states. So even though it was a narrow victory, it was a significant one. And, the election is going to be studied for years. So many questions. Did Biden's decision, did he wait too long? Why did the Democrats see support erode in some key constituencies like Latino men? So I think, the election is obviously going to have, wide-ranging effects over the next four years or longer, and we can talk more about that. The second thing would be the economy, because it hasn't gotten enough attention, but the economy is, in 2024 has rebounded incredibly well from the pandemic. 16 million jobs under Biden, wage growth greater than inflation for the first time in many years, the greatest economic growth in the world. The United States leads all other countries in terms of its economy. Stock market, record highs. So I think the economy has been just a surprising smash success. Not everybody benefited. Inflation was too high for too long. We know that. But if you look at the economy, and I was walking down Michigan Avenue over the weekend, and oh, my God. I mean, it's anecdotal, I know, but I mean, the shoppers, I haven't not seen people on Michigan Avenue like that since before the pandemic.
Wow.
So the economy is, I would think, number 2. And for me, the third is Europe. Because the Biden administration supported Ukraine and gathered our allies to step up and contribute more economic aid, more military aid, that we've been steadfast in our alliance with NATO, that we have supported democracy and we've supported Europe. We have 2 new NATO members in Sweden this year and Finland the year before. So under Biden, the economy is stronger. Europe is stronger. But, the election certainly, to me, is the most significant and surprising thing of 2024.
How long do you think it's going to take? Because, Joe Biden passed Build Back Better, the Infrastructure Act. There's all these plans to repair roads and bridges and put people to work. How long into the Trump administration will we be before Donald Trump starts telling people that these gains, these victories were his? Because he's the president and this good stuff is happening. Therefore, ergo, it is me. It is moi.
Well, it's already happening. He's already, taken credit for stock market gains since the election. Just as earlier, there was a stock market bump that had nothing to do with him very early in the year that he took credit for. So he will take credit for anything good that happens, and he will give blame to anything bad that happens. And I think the thing that in terms of the economy that everybody is really waiting to see will be the 2 things. I mean, the tariffs that he has promised from day one and the mass deportations, both of which all economists, or nearly all economists I've seen, say would be disastrous for our economy. So, looking ahead into the crystal ball, is he serious about tariffs? And is he serious about mass deportations? So those are the things to, I think we have to have.
Well, you just made a really good point, because a lot of the people who were Trump voters don't believe that this is going to happen. And yet, through his favorite border guy, Tom Homan, the Trump administration has already said, yes, Texas, thank you so much for offering us that 1,400-acre plot of land that would, you are correct, indeed make a fabulous detention site, and we will take you up on that offer. But the vegetable farmers, the fruit farmers, the dairy farmers that I've seen interviews with are all like, he won't do it. He will not round up undocumented workers because we will not. One of the dairy farmers told a reporter, if all of these farm workers are taken away, in 2 days, the country will run out of food. He predicted in 2 days. This guy's a dairy farmer, and he said in 2 days, there will be no food. Do you think anybody in the Trump administration is aware of this? Because, Donald Trump, despite what the people who voted for him are telling reporters, Donald Trump has a habit of doing what he says he's going to do. So I'm just unbelievably tired of the people who say, no, he won't do it, and then he does it, and they're like, oh, my God, he did it.
Well, he's getting, like you said, he's getting this pressure, not just from, dairy farmers, of course, but, look at a place like, Yuma County, Arizona, the winter vegetable growing capital of the United States, entirely dependent on immigrant labor. Look.
Okay, Paul, why don't you give Chris a call on his cell phone? We are still connected to Chris Bury, but Chris, if you can hear me, we can no longer hear you. The line seems to have gone dead. So Paul Shivari is going to give you a call on your cell phone to get you back on the air so that we can, well, you know what? Paul, while you're doing that, we're close enough to a break. Let me just do the contest, and then we'll go to the break, and we'll figure out what's going on with Chris Bury. You heard the ad earlier. We're giving away a gift card for Fry the Coop. It's the new hot chicken Chicagoland restaurants. There's 9 of them. They feature chicken sandwiches, chicken tenders, chicken and waffles, and chicken nuggets. And reportedly all delivering happiness in each crunchy bite. So if you're the second caller, 773-763-9278, you're going to get a $25 gift card to Fry the Coop. And they want you to know that they do not fry their chicken in, seed oil. They use beef tallow, which I don't know how your heart feels about it, but, man, that tastes just so amazing. Just so amazing. There are locations in Oak Lawn, Chicago, Elmhurst, Darien, Prospect Heights, Tinley Park, Bolingbrook, and you can order your chicken no heat, mild, medium, hot, or crazy insanity. Also, this is our holiday gift to you, a $25 gift card. Richard, Patty, and I are giving them away on our shows every day this week. And again, if you're the second caller, 773-763-9278, you will get today's $25 gift card. If you want more information about our contests, go to WCPT820.com. You have to be 18 years old, live in the area, pretty much where you hear my voice. One winner per household, void where prohibited by law. You can only win or qualify to win once every 30 days. So we are going to take a break. You can win a gift card, and hopefully we'll have Chris Bury when we come right back after all this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
We have rescued Chris Bury from the ether. He is back with us once again. DePaul journalist in residence, former longtime network news guy. We were talking about Donald Trump, how he frequently actually does the things that he says he's going to do, but how a lot of people who vote for him are convinced that he will not do the things he says. If he brings back the tariffs, if he rounds up those who are working in this country without the proper documentation, we are going to have an economy that goes south pretty darn fast, Mr. Bury.
Absolutely. And we were just talking before about how, it's not just agriculture, which, of course, is so dependent on immigration, laborers documented and otherwise, but, whole cities like Las Vegas. You go to Las Vegas and your car parker, your concierge, your hotel, maid, the guy in the kitchen, a lot of immigrants. And, you can go, there's a Mexican consulate in Las Vegas. You can go right in and get state certified identification. So, this is ingrained in our system. And obviously, all presidents, including Biden and Obama, have deported tens of thousands of immigrants, but mainly criminals. And so what's different about what Trump is proposing or is planning is that he's talking about, deporting whole families. Dreamers.
Because, as the reporter asked him, what are you going to do if the children are American citizens, but the parents are not? He said, well, the only thing we can do is just send them all back. So, in other words, people who are legal citizens of the United States getting deported because, if you don't want family separation, I just don't see another way around it.
And then you have the dreamers. You have, young adults now who came over here or teenagers who came over here as infants or small children because their parents were undocumented, who know no other life, no other country, maybe no other language, who are, in many cases, students. I've had fantastic students at DePaul University who were dreamers and are dreamers. So, the kind of impact this could have is enormous. And his supporters voted for that. Maybe they thought he was joking. I don't, like you said, I don't think he was. So we have to be prepared for a lot. We have to be prepared for tariffs. We have to be prepared for massive roundups of immigrants. And we have to be prepared for, I think, corruption. And if we wanted to talk about 2025 and, looking ahead, I've got some other letters of the alphabet for you.
Yeah. Well, we had corruption, unbelievable corruption in the first Trump presidency. How many of his cabinet people were removed because they were grifting? And if Bill Barr hadn't been head of the DOJ, we would have seen some, if not all of them, go to jail because they were removed and they were recommended to the DOJ for criminal prosecution. I remember the grift. Vacations, private jets. The way that government money was being wasted was shocking.
And we now have, I was trying to count up how many billionaires have been named, and this may not be accurate, that there may be more, but as of today, I counted 11 billionaires that have been named to cabinet offices or high-level positions. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, Linda McMahon, Doug Burgum, Interior Secretary, Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, Charles Kushner, Ambassador to France, Kelly Loeffler, SBA, Warren Stevens, Ambassador to UK, Stephen Witkoff, Middle East Envoy, Jared Isaacman, NASA Director. Those are only the ones that we know of so far. We've never, ever, and I think people need to understand this, we have never in our country had a prospective cabinet that is dominated by the wealthiest. It's not a surprise that they would be wealthy, but we are talking the wealthiest top 1/100th of 1% in the country. And it's the use of public office for the benefit of private gain. That's what this is about. We're already seeing it. Reuters reported yesterday that Elon Musk has targeted a rule which requires the federal government to keep track of accidents involving, non-driver vehicles. And, of course, he wants this rule killed. And he spent $277 million to elect Trump. So, we're going to be looking at corruption, I think the likes of which are going to be unparalleled in our history.
And I read also, there have been different amounts reported. But one figure that I saw was that Elon, through various PACs, direct contributions, in-kind stuff, that the sum total of his efforts to get Donald Trump elected came to $270 million. And I forget the business reporter who was writing this article, by their estimation, with the things that he's gotten Donald Trump to agree to, he has already made hundreds of billions of dollars for his various companies and his personal holdings. Because, a lot of them, a lot of the billionaires were really big on Trump because they knew they could, if they gave him enough money to get elected, he would do what they wanted on Bitcoin. Because remember, Donald Trump used to be like, I don't know what Bitcoin is. It seems like a scam to me. And now he's talking about that maybe the federal government should pay some of its bills in Bitcoin. And that alone, there were like 3 or 4 billionaires who stood to incur these breathtaking windfalls if the government would back Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
It's a government for sale.
Absolutely. And we know that Trump is completely transactional, not only for things like cryptocurrency, not only for, look at TikTok. Trump was one of the biggest opponents of TikTok until its billionaire American investor gave him a giant campaign contribution, and he flipped. He did a complete 180 on TikTok, and now is supporting it. So we've seen this again and again. We saw him on tape with a group of energy moguls promising that if they raised $1 billion for him, they would get what they want. We're going to have an absolutely transactional government. So we're going to have not only, I think, corruption, but when you look at the kinds of people he has appointed, we're looking at kakistocracy, which is one of my favorite words from the first Trump administration, which means government by the incompetent. I mean, you have Carrie Lake, the failed candidate for governor and for U.S. Senate in Arizona, and she's being appointed the head of the Voice of America. This is a journalistic organization that supports U.S. policies overseas, but it's always been led. I mean, Edward R. Murrow was head of the Voice of America, and he's appointing Carrie Lake, who is a known liar, who disgraced both the professions of journalism and politics. She's going to head the VOA. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And, he wants his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, to be the new senator from Florida, wants her to replace Marco Rubio. So it really is. I mean, look at his cabinet picks. A drunk and a rapist for to head the military. A woman that some Republicans believe is a Russian asset to head intelligence. A vaccine denier to head our medical infrastructure. I mean, clearly these are not.
Somebody made the point that this is like, appointing someone who hates football to be the head of the NFL. And the reason I was chuckling before when you mentioned Laura Trump is I was thinking about Kimberly Guilfoyle.
The
Donald
best
Trump
is yet to come.
So, he dumps her for a new squeeze. And Trump decides to appoint her ambassador to Greece. And I guess all I could figure was two things. They want to get her out of town because Junior's got a new
Dad,
girl.
you got to help me here. You got to help me here. You got to get her. Please, Dad.
They want to shut her up. I don't know if you remember the movie Broadcast News, but there was a great scene in there where there was a romantic interest, and the executive producer wanted to get a reporter out of town who was interested in the guy she was interested in. And so the executive producer sent this reporter on assignment in Alaska for a long time. And that's what I was thinking of with Kimberly Guilfoyle is, okay, Junior gets tired of her, and boom, she's getting shipped, to Greece. And
hey, but at least she doesn't have a criminal record. I mean, they sent the convicted Kushner father, Charles. They sent him to France, and if that isn't an insult to the country and people of France, man, oh man.
And he's a billionaire, too. Yeah, you're right. And a felon, pardoned by Trump. Just the best people all the way around.
We need to take a break. But when we come back, Chris, the thing that keeps bothering me, I understand, Chris, that you pay attention to current events, and I pay attention to current events more than the average person. But it seems to me even with a real low level of interest in what is going on in the world, you would see the nightmare that is Donald Trump. And yet, Chris Beery is going to tackle this thorny issue when we return right after a break.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by Chris Beery, DePaul journalist in residence, and I would love Chris to weigh in on the thing that you guys hear me talk about all the time. Even if you were a low-information voter, how could you not see the convicted felon, the man convicted of sexual assault, the guy who was convicted of fraud, found to be a con, involved in multiple bankruptcies? In his first term, the Washington Post conservatively estimated that he told more than 30,000 lies. Even if you're on a news blackout, it would seem that some of this would penetrate. And yet we have Donald Trump reelected to the presidency, even though this time around, by all indications, he's going to be a lot worse than he was before. How did this happen?
I think the huge part of it is the media ecosystem. Don't, forget, and for your listeners, I mean, Fox News has an audience that exceeds that of CNN and MSNBC combined. You have Sinclair Television, one of the, if not the biggest owner of local television stations, which put out coordinated pro-Trump editorials on the local news in more than 100 television stations. And if you drive around any area, including Chicago, I mean, on the AM airwaves, conservative talk radio is dominant. And then you go to social media. And, of course, X, formerly Twitter, is the biggest sort of political social medium out there, owned by a billionaire Trump supporter. Facebook, publicly traded, but Mark Zuckerberg has certainly been bending to Trump. And then you have, even in the mainstream media, you have Jeff Bezos of the Washington Post and the publisher of the LA Times refusing to get involved. So, if you search out information, you're going to find out how many lies Trump has told. But if you don't want to believe it, and if you listen and watch nothing but propaganda media, you're going to be convinced. And, one of the things that I kept seeing was people would post on social media, "Oh, I'm not bothered by a few of Trump's mean tweets," as if that's all he did, right? I mean, he was convicted on 34 felony counts, indicted, for stealing government documents, indicted for conspiring to defraud the United States government. And it didn't sink in. I'm with you, Joan. I don't get it. I just don't get that. I mean, outside of this media effect. And I think that's so dangerous.
I do as well. And, I don't want to be mean-spirited, but it really does seem like there was a wave of ignorance, a wave of people either not caring about finding out the truth. Because this wasn't Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, where you've got two guys who basically see the same goals but want to get to them really different ways. This was an election like no other, where you had somebody with Project 2025 who is a document for how to dismantle the government. And I think that you're right. I think the media played a role. I think that not that a lot of these voters were reading the New York Times, but there were too many places that covered this like a normal election, that did sane washing. Even, frankly, for those of you who were just listening to the news at the top of the hour, as far as Donald Trump, at the news at the top of the hour, they reported that Donald Trump said that, he is thinking of pardoning Eric Adams because, he thinks he was treated really unfairly. He hasn't seen the gravity of it, but, and that's the clip they used. But the whole sentence, Chris, was, I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of it all, but it seems, like being upgraded in an airplane many years ago. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded, and that was the whole statement.
It's crazy. And, of course...
So Associated Press takes the part of it that makes sense, to them at least, and talks about that without adding the insane part of it, which is where he went afterwards.
Yeah, and we certainly had this problem leading up to the election where, only in the last couple of weeks did mainstream news organizations start reporting that, Trump was just incoherent, that his statements were not making any sense. And there had been such an effort, even by the top publications, to create some sort of a coherent narrative out of his crazy speech. Mm-hmm. And it did lead to this sort of, I think, political coverage impression. Oh, it's the Trump campaign and the Harris campaign, and they're all alike. And without digging into the things that Trump were saying that just absolutely were incoherent and didn't make any sense. But it's tough. And you have every day now, Elon Musk on X just trashing the mainstream media, saying that people shouldn't pay any attention to it, that the real reporters are the followers of Twitter. And the whole thing is it's the dumbing down of democracy. And it reminds me of kind of a famous quote from Isaac Asimov, who was a science fiction writer and a science writer as well. And he said one of the things about democracy is this false notion that means my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. And we're seeing that, everywhere. When you're talking about vaccines, people think their beliefs. Marjorie Taylor Greene, our favorite congresswoman from Georgia, said today, right, that I believe strongly that vaccines cause autism, end quote. I believe. She doesn't have any facts. In fact, the science is like 99.9% otherwise. But we're elevating people who have beliefs with no evidence, with no facts. It's an anti-intellectualism. Or another way to put it, a cult of ignorance that's always been there, but social media, to me, seems to be making it worse.
Do you think, I read one thing that gave me hope, but I'm not sure I put any stock in it, and it was talking about how social media has made people ignorant and ill-informed, and that, just like people get tired of all different kinds of other things, you just wait because, in the next, they didn't set a specific time frame, but in the future, people are just going to get so tired of social media, it isn't even going to matter anymore. And while I would love to believe that, I'm not sure I do.
No, I mean, judging from my, students, so I hang out, during the year, the school year, with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds, and they are absolutely ensconced in social media like 24/7, and they don't really read the New York Times or the Washington Post or even the Chicago Tribune, but man, they're looking at TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Oh, not so much Facebook. That's for us old people.
Old people, yeah.
But, whatever it is, they're looking at it. So, no, I don't think social media is going along away anytime soon. The question is, can it be harnessed? Is there still hope for, what Twitter used to be, really, before Musk took it over, which is, a good place to get breaking news, to get sort of honest dispatches from the scenes, to get some decent analysis, not only from journalists, but scientists and lawyers and reporters. So, yeah, it's when you have people like Elon Musk who are driving a political agenda, on social media, it's really, really hard.
It is really, really hard. I know I've asked you this before, but your students, where do they get their information? And not only where do they get it, but in their conversations with you, what are the things going on in the world that resonate with them? I'm guessing, the fall of Roe v. Wade and Gaza might be too, but where do they get their information? And what would you say their top 3 stories are?
Well, certainly they do get it from their phones. And I think TikTok has taken over as probably the number one source that I see for young people. I think a lot of them have fallen off of X. They still use Instagram. But I think TikTok is big. I certainly saw a lot of concern about Gaza and Roe v. Wade. But as always with that age group, just like, when we were in college, music and entertainment and celebrities and movies are a huge part of their social media appetite. They're into fashion and into celebrities and, pop culture and movies and all those sorts of things, probably more so than politics, except for the most hardcore. I did notice a big difference. I asked in the spring when Biden was still running, and there was very little interest in him. He was just considered too old. And more students did get excited about Harris. But then again, you step back and you look at the national figures for voting participation, and young people fell off. I mean, the voting participation was way down from 2020 and 2016.
And here, that's a good example, because some of the people I've read who've looked into that think that even though there were a lot of young people who were really motivated to try to take back women's autonomy and get to the polls and vote in pro-choice folks, that there were a lot of students who didn't vote because they were so upset with the Democratic Party over policies in Gaza. And this is where the idea of informing yourself. Okay, I don't like what Biden has done or not done in Gaza. So I'm going to vote for Jill Stein. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm going to stay home, because all of those not voting for anything that was not voting for the Dem means that the Republican is more likely to win. You are helping that person win. And in what universe would somebody think that Donald Trump would be fighting their fight in Gaza? The guy who has said, I think Netanyahu's great and he should do whatever he wants to do. And if he wants to make Gaza a parking lot, well, then that's what he should do. So this is where was the big picture? Where, I'm so mad at Biden, I'm just not going to vote.
Yeah. The best example of that is Dearborn, Michigan.
Yep.
In that county, Trump came in first, Jill Stein came in second, Kamala Harris came in third. And what's one of Trump's first appointments? Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee to be ambassador to Israel. Who says that there's no such thing as Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. So, they don't exist.
They don't exist, and there's no such thing as Palestine. It doesn't exist. So you had, Democrats back to Bill Clinton, seriously working on a two-state solution. I was covering that, the whole Camp David in the 90s when that came very, very close. And so they vote against Harris because they want to punish Biden. But, okay, that's step one. Now let's step two. Okay, you elect Trump. What happens? So it's that failure to think beyond. And now they're surprised. They were so angry at Biden, and now they're surprised that this administration is going to be relentlessly pro-Israel in a way that Harris, it's absolutely going to be, far more perilous for Palestinians now than it was had Harris been elected. Yep.
Well, I think we're going to have quite a large amount of buyer's remorse over the next few years. And, I don't think Dems should save some of these groups from the bad effects of what they voted for. I think, we've got to make sure that the issues we care about and the people we care about, we protect them as best we can. But you know what? Maybe people need to experience Donald Trump to remember just how awful he is. I guess we'll find out. Chris, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to talking to you in 2025.
Thanks, Joan, and have a great holiday.
You too. We're going to break for news. Be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
I'm very pleased to welcome back David Layman, longtime local newsman, news manager, political observer, political pundit. I could go on, but I think I want to get to our interview, David, so I'll stop there unless there's something new and exciting you want to add to the list of your bio here.
No, just keep going. Keep going.
Really, enough about me. Let's talk about me.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing remarkably well. I spent Thanksgiving week in bed with my 5th round of COVID, and then a few days ago got hit with the rebound COVID. But you know, it hasn't been too bad. So my hope for the holiday season is just to stay well. I just want to be well. That it's a small request, maybe not so small at my age.
Well, I think you ought to give, when you have these kinds of symptoms, you ought to give Robert Kennedy a call and see what he might recommend.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, it's so funny. I was talking to one of my girlfriends because she, over Thanksgiving, had COVID in her house as well. And she said, I thought to myself, because they had a whole house full of people and only one was testing positive. She said, I'm going to go on the CDC website because I know they have all the recommendations for how to deal with COVID. And I just, it's been a while since we had it in the house. I'm going to see how the recommendations have changed. And as we were talking, she said, when Trump took office the first time, a lot of scientific information disappeared from government websites. And she said, if Bobby Kennedy is in charge and Trump takes office, is all of this information going to disappear? And, like they're talking about privatizing, the weather folks. I mean, is all that data going to disappear?
Yeah, that's hard to know. I didn't mean to get you off on a rocky start here with my little attempt at humor. But at any rate, so what would you like to talk about? You sent me a couple of requests.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on this past year we've just experienced and what stood out to you, and then maybe, what if you could make some predictions for what you think might or might not happen in 2025. But let's start with 2024. What?
Well, I think probably, 2024, you really will not really be able to talk about it in many terms that don't have the name Trump associated with it because it was such a dominating force. Now, and I may be a little bit on the fringe with that because, I'm a political consultant, but a political pundit and so forth. So I tend to pay a lot of attention to what's going on. Most people obviously are not like you and me who, they do pay attention to some extent, but many of them are, the Labor Day and beyond people who pay attention. They don't pay attention to it all year round. But, this whole thing with Trump and his bizarre appointments, his bizarre comments throughout the campaign. In fact, if you'd like, I'll give you a couple of predictions. I'll do it in reverse order because I did take a couple of minutes to think about that before I came on with you on the air. One of my predictions, and I really hate predictions because as insightful as many of us think we are, we're often found to be either off the mark or just flat out wrong. But my prediction is I think Trump will get off to a pretty good start if he can get his appointees, approved. since the voters and his political supporters are really, you'd have to say they're on a high with his victories, and presidents typically have a honeymoon period, for 100 days or probably even a little bit beyond that. If Donald Trump attacks every issue on his agenda, believing that he has a mandate, which he does not, he will soon, I think, find himself in trouble, putting at risk to his presidency. And you might say, why? Well, I think in spite of his love of power, his quixotic approach to everything without a lot of attention to detail, he's kind of a bull in a china shop. He may find himself really at odds with some of the public and some of his supporters. We're already seeing him backing away from the grocery prices. Remember, he's said repeatedly,
I can't bring those down. That's hard. That was my favorite part of the quote. That's hard. When prices are high, it's hard to bring them down.
Yeah, it wasn't hard when he was campaigning. I'm going to bring those down. We're going to have energy prices down. For the first time, we're going to be independent on oil. If he had read anything, he would know we've been independent with oil. We are exporting oil. We produce more fuel than any other country in the world. And he made it sound like we were back in 1972, 73, where we're depending on the Arab Aramco and some of the other Arab oil companies to provide us with the fuel. Back then, we were taking in, I think, 50% of our fuel was imported. Now we export. So so. The problem, I think the big problem, maybe this is a sub-prediction, I think a big problem in the United States is you have no idea what the facts are because there is absolutely no regard for accuracy. Lying now is expected in big measure. Now, politicians have always stretched truth. You've been in the public relations business. I've been in the public relations business. I have never, ever lied intentionally about anything. And when I was television news anchor and reporter for 3 decades, I certainly, made it my business to try to find out who's telling the truth and to be sure we got it out there. But nowadays, everybody is expecting every statement that a politician makes to be absolutely false, and yet they just kind of laugh about it because they just know it's so preposterous. The problem is the MAGA people actually believe the lies, and that's where we have a problem. And when Trump is out there saying all these things, he has no regard for the truth. And when I hear his people talking about the truth in regards to the ABC settlement of $15 million, they're talking about it as if these people don't know what lies are. These people are the greatest liars, I think, in the world. And frankly, I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm really just right in the middle. I'm an independent. And so anyway, I think, continuing with my point, because we're already seeing Trump, starting to have to deal with the realities of what he has said. He has set so many benchmarks for himself, most of which cannot be sustained. This whole idea of tariffs on everything, that is going to blow up on him like an atomic bomb.
And yet I think, today, just today, he was saying that's going to be the greatest thing for our economy, these tariffs. Greatest thing.
Oh, he's been saying that. He's been saying that, the last couple of weeks. And anybody you talk to, even conservative fiscal people, will tell you the way it works is if you throw a tax or a tariff on a company or a country that exports to you, they're not going to eat that. Many of those countries, like Mexico. Mexico couldn't afford to eat those tariffs. And we get, so much of our produce. I think 95% of our guacamole stuff, the avocados. Yeah. 90%, 95% of them come from Mexico. You think they're going to swallow a tariff and eat that? Of course not. They're going to pass it on. And it's the same way all the way around. And conversely, countries for whom we lay on these tariffs, when they are exporting to us, they're going to put a tariff on this way because it works both ways. I mean, that whole thing is just such a shell game. And I don't pretend to be, an economist of nature, but some of the stuff is just common sense, and it's pretty much backed up by almost every talking head you see on cable news, whether they're on the right or the left, mostly on the left, I gather. But that's just outrageous. So I think he has made so many guarantees, like ending the wars on day one, grocery prices, fuel prices, and so on. He's not going to be able to do that, and that's going to end up causing him some problems, because now the big, strong bully is going to have to say, oh, well, I didn't really mean all of what I said, and, oh, well, if this hadn't happened, it would have come true. I think people are going to see through that. Also, a president generally loses popularity, once he gets into office, because then they have to make the hard decisions, with policies, et cetera. And many of the constituencies that support them are going to say, well, wait a minute. I liked that he was going to do that, but I didn't know that was going to have this effect on me. And so suddenly you start seeing people, it's kind of like an onion being peeled. You start peeling away one layer after another. Before you know it, you don't have much of an onion left, but you got a pretty big mess on your hands. So my sense is that every solution does create unforeseen or unanticipated problems, and that really does require something other than the bully approach that Trump uses. And as Trump nears at the end of his first 2 years, you have to remember he's going to be a lame duck president. And when you're a lame duck, you don't get the same loyalty that you're used to.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think once the midterms come and go, and Donald Trump really can't maybe cause as much grief for them on their next election, do you think the Republicans, maybe not in the House, but in the Senate, will have more backbone when it comes to standing up to him?
I was about to make that same point. I'm glad you made it, because I absolutely believe that will happen. And I wouldn't be quite so quick to dismiss the House of Representatives. And here's why. As you know, and a lot of people who understand government and pay attention to it know that, the House of Representatives is unique because every one of those people, 435 people, they have to run for re-election every 2 years. They are always in a campaign cycle. The Senate, and this is part of I think the vision of the early framers of the Constitution, they gave the Senate 6 years. So it basically indemnifies senators for a longer period of time. They can make some decisions that are controversial, and usually they'll do that in their first couple of years, so they've got the next couple of years after that to kind of tame down any of the negatives that have come with some of their decisions. So they have a little bit more of a life insurance policy that the House of Representatives doesn't have. And so the House of Representatives was created to be really more responsive immediately to the people. But with that also comes the responsibility of getting reelected when you make an unpopular decision. And so they have a very short runway for the next election. So if things start to go awry, Donald Trump, is probably not going to have the same kind of support 2 years from now, or maybe a year and a half from now, that he does now. Now, I could be wrong on that. I mean, and I will say this to you, I hope that the president does get a lot of these problems squared away. It's about time they were taken care of. I think the border situation has been a disgrace. I realize I'm empathetic with the people who want to come here, but your hard problems cannot take our economy and our country down with it by just sending so many people over the border. And I don't buy all the stuff that Trump says. He talks about we've got murderers, we've got mental health people, or mentally deranged people coming in here. There are no statistics that bear that out, that it's above what would normally be occurring. So he makes it look really bad. But the fact of the matter is, we've got, anywhere from 12 to 20 million people here who weren't here, a few years ago. And that does change a little bit of the character of the place. It doesn't give you the time to really get used to that. So I think there has to be intelligent managing of that. And also, we still need to have empathy that these people are not coming to the United States because they hate their country. Most of them are coming from climates that they love, beautiful places, but they're coming here because of all the gangland stuff that's occurring, the lack of government support, and so forth. So, at any rate, I do wish that Trump, I wish him well on finding a palatable solution to some of these problems, and I hope they can work it out. But if he tries to play the bully card, he's not going to go anywhere. And because you know what? Washington, D.C. understands what I just said, and they know that if things start to go off the track, they can go off the track pretty fast, even though Trump is a strong man.
Well, we need to take a real quick break. David Layman and I are going to be talking more about politics when we come right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
And joining me is Dave Layman, longtime local newsman and news manager and media trainer and political observer. We were just talking about Donald Trump, and one of the things that I thought was so fascinating, and this didn't get a huge amount of attention, but I'm wondering if you saw it. Shortly after Donald Trump was elected, within a few days, there was this, and by the way, I called Vladimir Putin, and I told him no more escalation in Ukraine. And then over the course of like 6 or 7 hours, it came to light that, no, actually, there was no phone call. Donald Trump did not call Vladimir Putin and did not say those things to him about, you better not escalate in Ukraine. That didn't happen. And it was like this. It was this totally bizarre thing that came and went in the space of 24 hours. And I thought it was really, really weird. And I'm very curious to see how the relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin plays out. Because, Donald Trump has made a lot of noise, like somehow his friend Vlad will wrap things up in Ukraine because, they are so tight. They are, just so into one another. And Vlad really, really likes him. So he's pretty sure that he can bring the whole Ukraine situation to a close. And I'm just kind of wondering how that's going to play out. What do you think?
Well, the same thing. Again, where the rubber meets the road, Trump is going to be in the Oval Office, and these problems are not going to be Joe Biden's problems, and certainly not going to be, Harris's problems and Walsh's problem. Now he's going to have to make do on these promises and these lofty comments that he makes about his great relationship with Vlad. Joe, when I think about the way things have unfolded here in the last few years, I'm thinking, 10 years ago, I don't think we would have ever thought it possible that a president of the United States would be bragging about his great relationship with our arch enemy.
No.
And would also would say that he was very chummy with chubby head of North Korea. That these are all they're good for. We have love letters and all that. I mean, first of all, most presidents would never say he has love letters with other guys to begin with, but he's very, very vocal about that. And you'd have to say, what is it that makes you guys friends? Because we have never had anything really in common with the Soviet Union, now the Russian Federation. We've never had much in common with North Korea, except to send, I guess we've got still about 20,000 troops over there to try to keep them honest. So, 10, 12 years ago, if people said then that we'd be talking this way now, they would think we all are on drugs, because it would have just been unthinkable. And, I know people will say, well, I'd rather have a president who's at least talking to Putin or talking, to Xi and China and so forth. Yeah. But you know what? You do that through diplomacy. You don't do that through, love letters back and forth. Because I got news for you. Putin, as evil a guy as he is, is so much smarter than Trump. And if I ever had to put those two guys across the table from each other, I'd have to say I'd probably put my money on Putin.
Oh my God! Of course I would. I would. I wouldn't have. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. It's just incredible. But so many people think, oh, well, this is a good thing. He's talking to Putin. No, he's not just talking to Putin. What he's trying to do is he's trying to create some business for himself after he gets out of the White House in 4 years. His goal is to have a Trump Tower or something along that line, and probably other business deals that you and I don't know about. That's all driven by his own personal economic desires. And so it's just fascinating to see what is acceptable now would have never been acceptable 10, 12 years ago to the Republican Party. This party has turned out to be just a cesspool of people with no backbone.
It really has been. Because people were talking about, in South Korea, the head of state there tried to use the military, tried to do a coup, and the people fought back. But it was actually not just that the people fought back, which they did, but members of his own party called him up and said, we are not going to support you in this. We are not going to allow this to stand. And all of a sudden, that's when, he backed off. Who in this country would be there for us like that? Who would be the one to say to Donald Trump, oh, no, you can't do that. We won't be there for you. Lindsey Graham? I mean, you see Lindsey Graham having a backbone? Mike Johnson, for God's sake? Who?
Oh, no. You're absolutely right about that. A lot of the people, during Trump's first term, they really did have the guardrails up. I don't think we fully know the whole story about what some of these people did to prevent Trump from doing things that he wanted to do, But they're no longer there, and it'll be interesting to see the people that Trump has surrounded himself with now or hopes to surround himself with. These are all people who are sucking up to him big time, and these are people who don't really know government themselves. And Trump doesn't know a whole lot either. He knows more than he did, 8 years ago. But these are not people who are going to be equipped to stand up to him because they're there by the grace of Donald Trump. And, he is going to be in an information position of knowing more than they do. So they're also so aligned with his ultra right-wing policies that, they're very comfortable with this. So you don't have any guardrails there now. And if Trump is smart and, he's a billionaire.
Hold that thought, David. We're running into a commercial break. If Trump is smart, okay, those are words that you don't hear very often. We're going to take a break. David Layman and I will be right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by a local newsman, news manager, political observer, media trainer, David Layman. And before we went to break, his last words were, if Trump is smart, and then I blacked out. I mean, I think my head hit the desk. I am now bleeding from my ears, but I will allow David to finish that thought.
Well, it was tongue-in-cheek, actually, so I may have saved you from something.
Okay.
But I think I'll use a different phraseology here. I think that if Trump plays his cards right, he will moderate some of what he's been saying, because if he doesn't, I think he's going to be embarrassed in the short term, because a lot of the promises that he has made, just, again, going back to the grocery thing, that's such a great example. And the guy's not even raised his hand again to take over the office. He's already admitting that before he gets into office. So I think if he moderates a little bit, he might get a little bit more support on Capitol Hill with Democrats, who he's probably going to need at various times, as opposed to just going in there and just demanding everything be his way or the highway. So that really was the point that I was going to make. But
don't you think somebody like him looks at that kind of moderation as a kind of a weakness. By God, I said I was going to do this, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, but Joe, look at what he just did. He just said, I'm not really sure how we're going to ever get prices down. I mean, he's already done that. I mean, he's eaten his words already. I mean, he's not even back in the Oval Office. So I think, there's that old saying that, when your back is against the wall, you look for a door. And so he may find that he's got to do that when he starts to see things are not going his way. And I hope things do go his way if he's going to do things in a reasonable fashion, which, of course, is another reason for you to go into a conniption fit because he doesn't do that. But I'm just saying the reality, he's going to be looking, again, as time goes on here, he's going to be looking at his legacy. And, his biggest fear in life is being a loser. That's why he never conceded the election. That's why the Democrats often said when they were out, campaigning, they kept referring to him as a loser because they know that really gets under his skin. So I think, if he needs to make some compromises to save himself a bit, and again, I'm not predicting the guy's going to go down in flames at all. I just think he has a lot of problems ahead of him that would be problems for any president. He's made them worse because he said, I'll handle that in a day. Oh, we'll have that in the first week. Oh, we'll have that in the first month. Well, you know what? Even though there are fewer journalists around these days, people write that down and they mark it on the calendar and they start doing the 1 week story. So you said this would be done by this week. You said this would be done by the end of January, and so forth and so on. They're going to hold him into account for that, and we'll see where that goes. But it's he's really got a lot of cards in his hands. But there's an old saying in business: if you run around as a manager kicking people in the butt as part of your management style, you better be patting other people on the back, because otherwise you will unite people who disagree on most everything else, but they will agree on their hatred of you, and they'll be responsible for getting your walking papers. Now, Trump's going to be there for 4 years. But if you're running around just bashing people and you're not bringing other people along with you, that is you and I have worked in newsrooms, and we've seen people coming in, whether they're news consultants or news directors who come in and they're going to kick the trash can, and they're going to fire this person, fire that person, and they're going to denigrate people. They'll have expletive filled newsroom meetings, and these people don't last very long because they've alienated people who normally might not even like each other. But the old saying is, an enemy of an enemy is your friend. Yep. And so Trump can't afford to do that. And if he does, he's going to find himself wishing he might be in prison as opposed to having to be in office for 4 years. But again, I'm pulling for the guy. I'm an American. I want this country to do well.
Yeah, really. Don't we all? One thing one thing that strikes me as different, when Obama was in his lame duck period, he still was out there. He was giving interviews. He was announcing things. He kept hold of the narrative. It really seems to me, and maybe I'm misremembering the past, so correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that Biden has checked out, and frankly, so has Kamala Harris. That, Donald Trump seems to already be the president, meeting with world leaders, getting all the attention. I mean, the Assad regime fell over the weekend, and Biden didn't really make a public statement about it till Monday. I don't understand that. Is this the way it's always been, and I'm just not remembering it right, David?
No, you're absolutely right. I think after an election, and if you've been defeated, or in this case, Biden wasn't defeated, but in many ways he was, These people do tend to go one of two ways. They're going to push through the things that they can get through before the end of their term, or they're going to lay low out of deference, or maybe just out of the fact that they're sick to death that they're not going to be in office when January 20th comes around. But there's something that's really, I think, remarkable about Biden, and that is he has been so low key. But I have to tell you, Joan, Trump was low key for 2 to 3 weeks after the election. You didn't hear much from him either. Do you remember that? He really was very low key compared to the way he normally was. But Biden has really checked out, and the reasons to me are very obvious. I think he hates the fact that he was basically told don't run. I think he hates the fact that he largely has lost the star power in a way, or the power of the presidency, because he truly is a lame duck. He's been a lame duck for a while now. And the most important reason why I think he's laid low is because of his decision to pardon his son, which I found to be really outrageous.
Now, see, that's one thing we disagree on, because I think maybe he could have been clearer in his statement, but when you've got Kash Patel saying one of my goals as FBI director is going to be to make sure that Hunter Biden spends years in federal prison, I'm sorry. But not only, and I think he should have been very public. I think he should have said, I'm not going to let them come after Liz Cheney. I'm not going to let them come after, Adam Kinzinger. I just want them all to know right now, I'm issuing preemptive pardons for all of these people. There is not going to be a Donald Trump witch hunt if I have anything to say about it.
I actually agree with you on that. I think what I disagreed with was the fact that this was foreseeable on his part when he was making the remarks and made them a number of times that under no conditions would he pardon his son. I understand from a father's point of view, as you do as a mom, you would want to, preserve your child from any kind of harsh punishment that you feel maybe he really shouldn't have had, but the system said that he did. And I just think the way he handled, actually the way Biden has kind of handled the last month and a half have really destroyed my sense of who he is and was. I think that he should have said that a pardon would be under consideration, but I'm not inclined to do it. Or if he wanted to just issue a statement when he did do it and say, here's why, and condemn this whole thing on the Trump people in terms of what they're planning to do to his son, who, on one of the charges, he probably would have never even had to go into court on because it wasn't that big of a deal. But when you're, dodging your taxes, that's a whole different thing. I think he pleaded guilty to that. But I just think that the way he handled that, and he didn't justify it. He just said, I'm going to pardon my son, and kind of left it there and left it to everybody else to comment on it.
No, I would have rewritten that statement. I would have rewritten that statement, and it would have been, this is ridiculous. My son has been held to account in ways that he otherwise would not have been if he hadn't been my son. And now they're talking about putting him in federal prison. This is a travesty. I'm not going to let it happen to Hunter. I'm not going to let it happen to Liz Cheney. I'm not going to let it happen to XYZ, Olivia Troy, and all these other people that, Kash Patel has in his sights. And I think the statement was not worded well, but I think the sentiment, was, I think that there are people who are saying, oh, but we're Democrats. We're always supposed to take the high road. He said he wasn't going to do it, so he never should do it. But sometimes I think you have to be pragmatic, and you have to occasionally fight fire with fire.
But Trump knew, and let me take the other side of this for a minute. Biden knew months ago that there was a likelihood, probably a reasonably good likelihood, that Trump was going to end up being, the winner of the presidential sweepstakes, whether it was against him or if it was against Kamala Harris. So, smart people see that in advance and adjust what if they're going to have to do something that is going to be not taken well by the public. They've got to take that into consideration in the way they handled it, and it just looked awful. It really looks. It looks like there are two kinds of justices in this country, and that's one for the wealthy and the powerful, and the other for the people who don't have the power or the connections, et cetera. So I feel that this whole thing kind of leaves a bad taste. I think Hunter Biden should serve time or should be punished in some fashion for the whole tax issue. I mean, that's something that
except that by the time it came to light, he had already paid back the IRS. And in that situation, when the IRS says, hey, you didn't file your forms right, you owe us more money, and you pay back, most people in that situation are not charged with a crime. Not if you've already acknowledged it and paid all the money back and paid all the penalties. He was held to a different standard.
How much money was it that he was hiding or
I
was
can't
not
remember.
Claiming tax?
I
can't either. But it was not a small amount. That's my point. So that's like saying, well, you're going to forgive the thief who steals a car off of parking lot or something bigger than that because, well, he actually paid for the car later on. I mean, that's not justice in this country. That's illegal, and that's why you have laws to do that. So I think he was guilty, as he's already pled guilty to the tax charge. I think the other thing about the gun, having declaring that he was not on drugs, and that was for a week-long period. I think that was a stupid thing. That's something that nobody else would have been charged with, and I agree that was overcharging, but. I just think the whole thing was handled so poorly, and he just makes Trump look good by pardoning all these people who attacked the center of our democracy on January the 6th. He's going to pardon these people. There's no question about it. They're going to get off of it, and this goes to another thing, and this is a prediction that one of the other predictions I was going to offer you. The fact that there is absolutely no trust in any of our institutions these days, including the Supreme Court, which is down around a 41% approval rate. Journalists are below the Supreme Court rate, I think, except for local journalists, ironically. I mean, we don't trust the institutions. Mm-hmm. Nobody's telling the truth. And that makes it ripe for people like Trump to come in and say, I'll solve it all for you. So I'll just hang around here for a good bit of time, and I'm going to take care of you because I know how to do this. That's how these dictatorships here and around the country, around the world, tend to take seed because there's just no trust in the institutions. And, I just think that is awful. But I'll give you two other predictions since you had asked me for them.
Hold on, because we need to take a break.
Okay.
And I want to get to, I don't want to interrupt you. David Layman and I will be right back after a quick break.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
And I'm joined by Dave Layman, who is going to share with us two more predictions before I cut him off. So please take it away.
This may surprise you based on the conversation for the past 45 minutes. I think the economy, even though it's having a tough week this week, I think it's going to continue to improve, at least for the time being. I just think there are just so many forces in the economy, both right, left, big, small, big companies, small companies, stock market, and so forth. I think there's too much at risk to let the economy slip down because it's been on the way back, for the last couple of years anyway. I think you're going to see an economy that's going to be improving, and of course Trump will take credit for it. But this has all been in the playbook here for the past couple of years, and I think the economy is going to continue to get better. I think you're going to see interest rates continue to come down. I think people are going to be able to finally start looking at borrowing money again at somewhat reasonable rates. Again, I don't have any reason to say that other than my own sense of watching economies, and as you know and I know, we've covered this all of our careers. and it's cyclical. And I think that right now, I think the report you had on the air here a minute ago said that for the last 8 days have been the longest string of days of negatives on Wall Street. But that happens frequently this time of the year when people are reevaluating their stocks for the tax purposes, et cetera. So that doesn't surprise me. But I actually think that the Democrats and the Republicans are going to want to try to keep a lot of this going because, they saw what happened. This election was probably won by Trump based on the economy more than almost anything else. So that's a prediction, and I could be way off on that, but that's what my sense is from having watched this over the last 5 or 6 decades. And then one other that you didn't ask me for, I'm going to give you a fourth one, and this was a little bit of fun, and I truly don't know anything about this, but I suspect that Travis Kelce is going to get engaged with Taylor Swift this year.
Wait a minute! I thought they already broke up.
No, they're still together. He just supposedly spent a lot of money on her, on a very expensive piece of jewelry for her birthday, her 35th birthday, on the 13th, and so. I think they're still together now. If you know differently, then I guess I'll.
I don't pay super strict attention to it, but I thought there was a report that he was seen out somewhere with a different chicala. But who knows? Who knows? They seemed like such a lovely couple, and I really enjoyed the fact that he was so supportive of her. And didn't seem in the least bit bothered by her success. So I thought he was a good role model. So I hope they stay together.
Well, the other thing too is this is kind of a footnote to what I just said. Maybe now that she's off the Eras tour, which has been phenomenally successful, she's now a billionaire. If she is now spending more time with him, that may shoot a big hole in my prediction here. If they find out.
Oh, you romantic, you!
It was really good while you were out on the road, but not so good now that we're here together. So I hate to say that. I'm just being halfway funny with that. But anyway, that's just my fun prediction.
Well, we'll have to see. Now, because you've said that, now I'm going to have to read all of these little clickbait things that come by so that we can see whether or not you're correct about that. I was surprised that she was turning 35. I thought she was younger.
Yeah, you know what? That's because she's been a star for a long time, and you and I have gotten older.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that 35 could also be, I don't know whether she's fond of children or not, but if she is, she probably doesn't want to leave a relationship if it's a good relationship. She probably doesn't want to leave that to go hook up with somebody else, as she has done. She's had her fair share of boyfriends over the years, which is, I don't fault her for that. That's just life. But at 35, if you want to have children, she probably is thinking in terms of that, hey, I'm a billionaire. I don't have to worry about anything. People love me. I don't have to worry about that. People love Kelce. He's a great football player. We've got a lot going for us.
I don't know. I think that wanting to have children is terrific, but I don't think wanting to have a child should ever be a reason to marry somebody that you wouldn't maybe otherwise marry. Observation. Not from my real life or anything like that.
I thought you were breaking ground with a brand new, psychological discovery. I agree with you. As somebody who waited till he was 48 to get married.
Yes, as you wanted to make sure you got it right.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I did, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I know. It's a work in progress. Well.
Sure.
I look forward one of these days when I'm out in California visiting my daughter. I'm going to grab that train down to San Diego so that we can have lunch. And my daughter's looking forward to meeting you. She's heard so much about you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thomasina, how is
Yes.
she doing? She's in L.A., isn't she?
She's in Burbank. Yeah.
Burbank,
She's coming in a couple of days for the holidays, and I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Don't you have a daughter who lives overseas? Isn't one of your girls overseas?
I just celebrated a big birthday, and my wife and my daughter, who both live in Europe. Cassandra lives in Amsterdam. She works for a high-tech firm there, and my wife is Dutch, and she loves that she's got relatives over there that we really have only seen episodically when we've gone over there. And she's now getting time to spend with them, having retired now from her job. And so she's doing that, and I've got a daughter here who is 28, and she's a successful jewelry designer. So we're, as I said, doesn't everybody do this at the age of 80?
Oh, did you just turn 80? You did not.
I turned 80.
No.
I did.
You didn't.
Everybody... Yeah, I did. And people tease me. They say, how do you stay so young? I said, because we make all of these provocative decisions in our lives and have always done that, which I think is also part of the whole thing of being a news anchor, where you're constantly, as you've done, moved around. You never get a chance to get comfortable. So you're always living in an uncomfortable state, somewhat. In a certain way, you're always working the odds so much of the time that it tends to be exciting, and I think it keeps you young if it doesn't kill you. So
well, wow, I didn't know that. My God, I would have at least sent you a card. That's a milestone birthday. Well, hang on in 2025 because we need to keep talking. Okay.
You bet. Hey, it's been great talking with you, Joan, and I look forward to any future chats and so forth. It's always good
Wonderful.
to have a good conversation. And hello to your audience as well.
And we will be doing that again in 2025. That's it for me. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez is, of course, next. Richard Chu will be here at 6 a.m., and I will join you again tomorrow at 2 p.m. We are going to have the long-awaited conversation with William Campbell from Ireland. That will be tomorrow at 3 p.m. I will be on the air at 2 p.m. See how that works? Take care, my friends. Have a great evening, and good night.